mentioned that caging results, we should have data by the end of the month. Nonprofits are still closing, still accruing back some of those donations that came in through the mail from December mailings, from, in fact, December donations, but those that are arriving now. I will say that when we discussed it internally, we found some data from our production solutions folks from other sources that November and December mail has been generally delayed. One of the things that we're going to be talking, November was delayed first class by 1 day on average, which is a huge jump for first class. I am guessing that will hold for December as well, as the USPS is retooled for packages, and especially in December is package focused. One of the things that we're talking about and will be talking about with a lot of our clients is allowing even extra time for those pieces that require a specific date to them. So you don't want to be receiving your end of year appeal January 5th, that sort of thing. So something to work on. USPS is trying the as yet unsuccessful business strategy of charging more for worse service. We're kind of seeing how that's working out for them so far. In digital, we have some good news from more digital clients. Of the 23 clients that we counted, and this is just people who had consistent types of programs year over year, and we had solid data for both years that we could do December versus December. So it's and I also excluded folks that were programmatic only and had spends below $1,000. So trying to get some of the random noise out of the data. 19 of our 23 nonprofits were up for December, up an average of 11% on average revenue, up an average of 32% on number of gifts. So those doing the math, average gift went down over this time period, which is a bit unique. It's the reverse of, so many of you, I'm sure, read the Moore report back in the summer, reporting on 2022 in the mail. And what we were saying there was higher average gift, lower gift numbers. There are three things that could have been causing that: people choosing to make larger gifts, a shift in smaller dollar donations kind of going away, and then choice on behalf of charities. You know, if you are going to mail fewer things, you are going to exclude the people who are likely to give you the lower amounts of gifts. So that makes sense. What we're seeing is the flip of that. And so you can flip each of these things. You can say either people are choosing consciously to make larger gift. I'm sorry. People are choosing consciously to make smaller gifts. So I doubt that as a reason for it. I'm thinking it is smaller dollar donors are increasing by more than larger dollar donors. We're bringing people back into the system who have donated before. And I do think there's a choice component to this. When you're doing things like CTV and programmatic, you can go after some more marginal targets, and with better data, you can go after more marginal targets. So I'm sharing the previous slide. Up 11% on revenue, up 32% on number of gifts. I also think this probably has to do with the marketing mix that organizations were doing. As you'll see in coming up, as we talk about subchannels, texting was a huge growth area for a large number of our clients and a couple of folks that entered for the first time in a big way. Text, I think, lends itself to smaller average gifts, and so I think you're changing somewhat the composition of who's coming into the system. So I wouldn't go out and say people are dropping average gifts. No, I think it's people who are giving smaller gifts coming back into the system, and that marketing mix going into there. So the aforementioned channel changes. SMS was up 225%. That's largely due to one organization that was a major entrant to the space. So that's skewing the results somewhat, but hey, the channel is going up and more people are entering into that, and do want to highlight that. Paid social is up 102%. Investment in that also went up, but not by the same amount. And so paid social, and you'll see it in programmatic as well. Some of the CPMs are going down actually, which A is great news, and B, don't count on it in 2024 as we're going into election season. One of the impacts of election season is likely ad rates going up. Paid search up 18%. Email was up 1%, but sends were up by far more. The amount per email down significantly. And then organic web down 5%. My guess is that when you're doing more paid social and you're doing more paid search and those are doing better, fewer people are coming to the website organically. They're going through one of those means. Programmatic, we're still working the numbers up. It's currently up 84%. Programmatic because you're not going to click on a CTV ad on your screen. A lot of that is attributed revenue. You have to look at holdouts, and you have to look at, these are the marketing mix of people that I marketed to, and here's their giving across channels. So we're in a bit of early days now, but up 84% is a pretty good number, and that's largely because of larger investment in that space. So highlighting and zooming in on some of those programmatic changes, despite more than doubling the spend that we saw from organizations on this, the return on ad spend largely held steady, which is great to see. Average gift went up significantly, but conversions went down. I don't know. I don't have a great hypothesis there, other than it may be just the way that people were modeling and being able to go after in this very performative space, being able to go after more marginal prospects. And CPMs coming down, which was great news. One of the great things about going after some of those marginal prospects is you're going after people that other people may not be going after, and so there may not be the spend associated with it. Final week shenanigans. The everyday after Christmas for 5 days was up. The 30th was down and the 31st were down, even though more emails were going into that time, and this is email attributed revenue. This is probably due to those being on a weekend this time. And so we'll be hoping that the 31st at least bounces back up next year. Leap year is going to shift things by 2 days. Any questions on any of the digital results? Okay, running through Fundraising Effectiveness Project released their data through Q3. Spoiler alert, it's all bad news by and large. So I'm going to rip through a lot of this lest we all get depressed. The good news, I would say, is that those that are Fundraising Effectiveness Project tends to skew towards smaller organizations. We are seeing more strength among organizations that are doing and have been doing more investment. So number of donors down, number of dollars down, not by as much as donors. So you're seeing that average gift ticking up across the board. It was just down in that one digital space for December, and retention ticking down as well. You're seeing this across all giving levels, but affecting the smallest amount donors the most. Also, that's the area where there are the most donors. It is across all giving life cycles as well, although those people who came in this year and last year had the lowest giving, the largest pullback in their year-over-year change. Some signs of life, those people who are giving the most have given the most, not shockingly. FEP looks at donors. It combines single and monthly donors separately. And if you're a monthly donor, it will count each of those as donations. And so I would say the 7+ category here is largely saying that monthly donations are static. Yes, I will share this deck and I will share the recording after the call. So, and if there are things that you want to dig into, chances are I either have a slide for that or can find one. So let me know if you have specific data requests. We had one yesterday from an organization in Southern California to say, how are Southern Californian organizations? We didn't have that in our data, but we were able to find a news article, gosh darn it. So we want to dig into these things for you. So The people who are giving the least had the largest drop off. Those that are more loyal were more loyal, which is good to see. Retention falling as we go through the year. A lot of this is, you can see that there was year-over-year increases in retention in January, February, and March. I attribute this largely to monthly giving programs continuing to rise during this. If you were a monthly donor in December and you were still one in January, it views you as having retained at that point. And so that's a large part of that jump here. You can see that trend more clearly in the 2022 data, where retention was flat and then it just cratered in February because everyone who was a monthly donor had already quote unquote retained. Retention is down overall, but you do see more strength among those people who have been with us the longest. And the retention is down across all giving amounts. So, like I said, good news in here for the sector, other than we are hoping that this is reflective of stabilizing and kind of creating a floor off of which we can jump. Artificial intelligence has been doing some, or will be doing some interesting things on search engine optimization and how people get to websites, and wanted to highlight that here because it's really interesting to me. I apologize if it's not to you. You can turn off for about 5 minutes, but hopefully we can make it interesting. There was a test that Google is putting this beta generative AI result at the top of its results. It is moving things down an average of 1,500 pixels, which is the equivalent of moving down from, if you were the first listing, you're now the 10th listing. So a huge gap to put that space in there. It's coming up in 87% of search. They are linking out of that content. Of that, the 10 of the links in that content, 94% of them don't match any URL in the top 10 of their search engine listings. So if they were to flip the switch tomorrow to that generative AI search, and we know they're probably going more and more in that direction, only 6% of the people who are in the top 10 would still be referenced in their search engine listings. Now, these are commercial queries. I remember there was skiing trips and I think camping equipment and those sorts of things were the searches, but I do believe it will hold largely true for all sorts of things. So there will be this large change in search engines. So the reason for this change goes back to a patent that Google had over a decade ago. I'm sorry, almost a decade ago. And this, those of you who were involved in search engine listings a decade ago, remember they had a Panda update. That's actually not for the panda bear. One of the inventors of this patent, or one of the people on this patent, was Navneet Panda. I'm glad they named it after Navneet because the other author was Vladimir Ofitsarov, and I don't think that would be as catchy as a search term. So they came out with this patent, and what this patent said is, Google built its empire on search engine listings that were like citations in academia. If you got linked to, it meant that someone is endorsing you. And if you were linked to by a more popular site, that must mean that you are yourself more popular. So this kind of rising popularity lifted all boats. They had to work on people who were doing link farms and just putting out a whole bunch of links to other people, creating fake websites that all link to each other, that sort of thing. But you can get to that if you're Google and you have billions of dollars. What this patent said is there's also such a thing as an implied link, which is if you get a mention on social media, on a website, they refer to your organization. That's the functional equivalent of a link. And so a resource in the group can be the target of an implied link without the user being able to navigate. And so, you know, that whole thing on social media, like don't retweet the trolls, it just gives them visibility. First, don't link to the trolls, it gives them visibility, but even mentioning their name causes them to be to go up in content. And so what this means, to summarize, brand is the new SEO. The more you are talked about, the more people will be able to find you. So we're talking about this in the context of things like DRTV and programmatic ads and the work that our first degree division does through PSA Direct and through earned media. Those mentions are going to factor into how people get to digital spaces more and more. And then researchers are testing how to optimize for AI-based search. And so they tested 9 different things and actually used, in some cases, AI to create the content that would then be tested by AI. So 9 different ways: authoritative content, stats, stuffing keywords, citing sources, adding quotes, making it easy to understand, optimizing fluency, using unique words and technical terms. Now, you can all think about which of these you think are going to be effective. It in your head? While you think about that, the type of content that they were doing is they would just add in things like, according to a survey conducted by the International Chocolate Consumption Research Group, and link out to that, or adding a stat, or adding words that make it sound more authoritative. So simple changes, huge relative improvements. According to a survey, more than doubled the visibility in AI-based search. And the 3 techniques that were most effective were adding stats, citing sources, adding quotes. And in fact, only 2 things from this list were total stinkers. Adding in a whole bunch of keywords, adding in unique words didn't perform at all. But quotes, stats, sources all helped significantly with AI, and then making it more fluent and easy to understand and making it more authoritative were kind of second tier. And so as you're going through sites that it's interesting because you would think that that would help the thing that was linked to, but apparently also using authoritative sources, citing them, quoting them, using those stats reflects well on you as well. And so one would hope this would create a more authoritative and a smarter web in how people search. It could also lead to an underground market in subpar stats and those types of sites. Any questions on any of that? Couple other AI notes. Boston Consulting Group tested their consultants, allowing them to use AI randomly assigned. They were able to do 12% more tasks, 25% more quickly, and 40% higher quality. So even among highly paid consultants, these type of generative AI systems can be helpful. Same thing for law students. Quality and time were improved. And this study, like a lot of studies on this, found that people who were doing the worst had the most improvement. It didn't help those people who were already writing great law review articles already, but those who weren't, it brought up the bottom performers the most. Take this with a grain of salt because it's Microsoft reporting on a Microsoft product, but they talk about how using Copilot, their AI tools, is helping with first draft, summarizing meetings and searching for information, not just on time, but on quality as well. There was a slight decrease on people summarizing meetings versus AI. But honestly, if you have one person sitting in the meeting to summarize the meeting for everyone else just to get a 1-point bump in the accuracy of those sorts of things, I'm glad I don't have that person's job, is what I'm saying. And then emails with Copilot were rated as more clear and more concise, which, let's face it, we could all use in our emails as we try to turn those meetings that should have been an email into those emails. AI has helped MIT researchers identify a new class of antibiotics that could help with MSRA. That's a bacterium that kills more than 10,000 people in the United States each year. So that was published in Nature, very hopeful on what AI can do in the medical space. And then OpenAI, if you go to platform.openai.com, I think it's linked right off that front page, but they just created a great guide to how to engineer prompts for their system. I'm not going to go through these in detail. They do, and it's excellent, but it's clear instructions, giving a reference. So write it in the style of, I could put in some of my old blog posts and say, write a blog post in the style of this, so it knows what I'm going for. In that case, it's probably just dropping in Star Wars references, but hey, your mileage may vary. Splitting up tasks, if you have really complex task, breaking it down. There are weird techniques for giving the model time to think. This is very important to me. Take your time. You're an expert. Those types of prompts really do help. Using external tools, specifically for math, ChatGPT is not good at math. And so there are plugins like the Wolfram AI that really do help it with some of those skills. And testing changes systematically. This is not a one and done by any means. Any questions on any of those? Okay, heading into our potpourri section. This is a program that's apparently been around for a while. I did not know about it, and so I'm sharing about it here. It's the Giving Machine program, and it's sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No implied endorsement here for any religion or all religions or anything like that. Just an interesting program. And it's a vending machine where you can go in and donate to each of these charities with symbolic gifts. So backpack or basketball or food packets for UNICEF or those sorts of things. The program's now in 61 cities in 7 countries. And it's supposed to look like how you would get snacks, but another way of hopefully engaging people in the giving process. One challenge, as you see with things like Facebook/Meta, you don't get donor data, which is always a real challenge. Many of you have probably heard that Mickey Mouse, or at least the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse, has entered the public domain. Shout out to a Creative Commons from Jennifer Jenkins and Sean Dudley, who created this Mickey Mouse friendly guide to how you would use Mickey Mouse in the public domain. You can't make it look like you're endorsed by Disney. You can't use, like Steamboat Willie is a little bit rat-like. He's not in color, so you can't use those versions of Mickey Mouse. But if you have a strong hankering to use Steamboat Willie in your campaigns, you now can, knowing that Disney has lawyered up for decades for this particular day. So use with caution. Lady Chatterley's Lover also entered the public domain. I'd go after that. There aren't a lot of Lady Chatterley's Lover lawyers out there right now. Some upcoming education, watch this space-ish. We're working on a predictions report. We got together a bunch of the smart minds throughout More and me to write little pieces about what our predictions are for 2024. Hopefully those are of interest. And then we'll have a couple of webinars coming up. The Keys to Digital Success webinar is up on our webinars page. If you go to wearemore.com/webinars, it's right there. Influencer marketing webinar, we're still working on a title, but our friends over at IFAW are going to be joining us and talking about one of their influencer marketing campaigns and how you can get into this space in the new year. Now that we know that it will help your search engine listings as everyone goes over to generative AI search. Those are the things that I had. Any questions or comments or those sorts of things?